It's basically impossible for you not to have heard some of the local foods propaganda coming from the ranching community. This gets split into different directions with their propaganda campaigns. One is if you're a good person, you support local. Another one is this community won't survive without these local agricultural businesses. The economy will collapse without them. They even go so far as to make it sound like people will go hungry without them. You don't get much more local than Point Reyes Station, Inverness, and Inverness Park to the Point Reyes Peninsula. So I stopped and I looked at the stores providing food for people right there. What I found was that not only was the vast majority of the food available in these stores not meat and dairy, but a large percentage of the meat and dairy that was available wasn't even locally produced. Let's take a closer look at this rather small meat and dairy refrigerator. At least in the grand scheme of the store, it's pretty small. Let's see what kind of brands we have in here. I do see Clover, but Clover sources from all over the place. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where the dairy itself came from. We'll come back to that. But Zergut, Bulgarian, is indeed a product of Bulgaria. That's not very local. Next we have Joseph Farms, which is closer to Fresno than Point Reyes. On the next shelf up, we have Laura Chennel, but it's goat cheese. And I have not seen goats out in Point Reyes, at least not for dairy production, ever. Actually, I haven't seen them out there at all. If indeed it's from Sonoma, and it probably is, I'm not saying it isn't, I guess you could argue that's sort of local. It's more local than Bulgaria. It's more local than Fresno. But I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not coming out of that peninsula, a peninsula full of ranchers who have been telling us that the entire local economy is going to collapse without them ever since the idea of the national park was first introduced. Next on the list, we have Athenos feta, and that either comes from Greece or Wisconsin. I don't know which one it is, but I do know that neither Greece nor Wisconsin are in the Point Reyes Peninsula. If I didn't know better, I would start to think that the ranchers telling you that you need them is closer to they need you. So far, I have not identified a single product that specifically comes out of the seashore. With the percentage of the product being that small, even if there is some, you gotta believe it would be easy to replace with an alternative. Also local, just not out of the seashore. IP Market ground beef, could not confirm where. Local, but where? Moving on, we have a Neiman Ranch pork chop. And while Neiman Ranch is sort of local, it's not the Point Reyes Peninsula. After that, things kind of go downhill for the argument of the necessity of the Point Reyes Peninsula meat and dairy, because pretty much none of this is coming out of there. But let's rewind. I didn't even notice this the first time I filmed it. We have a vegetarian and vegan sausage option in this local refrigerator. Oh my God, terrorists, they're anti-American. And then if we continue up, these are all vegetable soups. Oh my God, I see tofu in there. This is a terrorist store. Okay, as I make my way through the rest of the store past a myriad of products that are absolutely not coming out of the Point Reyes Peninsula, I'm trying to get to the milk window and see how much of that is coming out of the Point Reyes Peninsula. I do see Clover and Strauss on most of these labels. Here's the problem. While Strauss and Clover associate themselves as local, it doesn't mean it's coming out of the Point Reyes Peninsula. They've admitted themselves that only a small percentage of it comes out of the Point Reyes Peninsula. How are you going to pretend that there's going to be economic collapse when one door in this store feeding a town has these products that we can't even confirm came out of the peninsula? Since we're looking at Strauss, let's spend a moment to talk about Strauss, who admittedly says 15%, only 15% of their products come from Point Reyes National Seashore dairies. I wonder what percent of 15% made its way into this refrigerator. Because you can get Strauss anywhere. I just ordered some to a fake address in Las Vegas. And as important as Strauss is suddenly trying to make these dairies in the peninsula sound to his business, they didn't even deserve a mention on his website. Now, another point. Why don't I see any non-dairy options in that window? Considering that we saw vegan sausages in the other window, it no longer seems like a stretch to me. It could be a lawsuit thing. It could be an anti-Miyoko thing, because you should see Miyoko's cheese in the cheese. And you should see silk or oat milk or almond milk as an option in this window, unless you want to end up looking like, well, a dairy consumer. Miyoko's is headquartered in Petaluma. So if you're concerned about supporting local, you could support local and not be trying to kill the planet at a rapid rate. But, if not stealing babies from mothers, not killing the planet, not polluting, not contributing to a massive subsidy-driven industry, if all of those things don't do it for you, do it for yourself, for your own health reasons. Let's be very clear. Meat and dairy are unsustainable businesses that claim that they're sustainable, but can't survive at all without massive subsidies and rights to land and rights to water, etc., etc. You could support local while being more locally friendly. You could support local while being more globally friendly. I know that Miyoko herself set up a program to go around offering incentives to ranchers to transition from meat and dairy to plant-based agriculture. They weren't interested. They stubbornly want to stay in an industry that is doomed and is dooming the rest of us. Those aren't the types of locals that you want. I say good riddance. Tradition or no tradition, when it's time to change, it's time to change. But that's not what this video is about. This one is for you to contemplate. How badly did we really need those Point Reyes ranches? How local is your local food? I guess this bakery's trying to win points with the ranching community by calling it a bovine bakery. I don't know what kind of products come out of there, but that'll be in the next video as we explore more stores in the Point Reyes and Inverness communities.